Now, like most people who get diagnosed with ADHD later in life, the diagnosis, the road to that diagnosis begins with us. We make a discovery ourselves. We read something or we get talking to somebody and something sets the cogs turning and we start putting two and two together. It's not the sort of disorder where you sort of be walking through a medical practitioner's office and they go, "Oh my God, look at him, he's got ADHD. Somebody pull up a couch, let's diagnose him." It's actually much more mundane than that. And in fact, it's one of the reasons why lots of adults never get diagnosed in the first place, because people are not looking for it. And one of the questions that I asked myself as soon as I had this inkling in my brain that I had ADHD, before I was officially diagnosed with it, was, what the hell is it like to take these drugs that are used to treat it? Ritalin and Adderall are, of course, quite famous drugs, and they were the two brand names that popped into my head when I started thinking about the medication, and I honestly wondered what on earth it was like to take these things and how they helped. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you're at the start of your ADHD journey and you're thinking about going and seeing somebody to find out for sure, then allow me to explain how it is taking a stimulant from my perspective. So a little caveat, of course, at the start: everybody is different. We'll have different physiologies, different blood types, all sorts of stuff going on that I really have no great understanding of. Now, it's funny, of course, that we take a stimulant for a disorder which has the word hyperactivity in the name. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it, but the truth is that the hyperactivity is the result of understimulation in the brain, and so we take a stimulant to raise those stimulant levels to sort of baseline average brain levels. Our ADHD brains are not producing enough dopamine, which is the drug that provides this stimulation. It's a neurotransmitter, a really, really important chemical messenger in the brain, and if you have ADHD, you just don't make enough of it, and so the stimulants help you with that. Now, the first time I took Ritalin, I honestly had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if I'd get sort of high or I'd sort of bounce off the walls. I didn't know it would make me sick. And it's for this reason that when you start taking a medication like this, the medical professionals do a process called titration, where you start on a very low dose and you work your way up and up and up in dosage until it stops having further beneficial effects. So on the momentous day when I sat down at my work desk and for the first time took a stimulant drug, Ritalin, with my morning coffee, I have to say I was distinctly underwhelmed. And so actually I felt absolutely nothing. There was no kind of buzz. I didn't sort of start bouncing off the walls or anything. And it wasn't until about sort of 90 minutes to 2 hours later that I realized that what it had done very subtly was kind of tune down the background noise, the distractions around me. And when I looked at my computer screen after that time, I realized I'd basically just been plowing through my work for about sort of an hour straight, which is absolutely unheard of for me. Now, over time, my dosage of Ritalin has increased. I didn't stay on 10 milligrams for very long, let me tell you, because I found it ran out, expired, finished working pretty quickly. And now I'm getting on for sort of 80 to 90 milligrams of Ritalin a day. I take my Ritalin in 10 milligram pills, and I really like this method of taking them because it means I can tweak the dose according to what I've got going on in my life. So for instance, if I'm just going out for the day and there's no great need for me to be super switched on and clued in and focused on a task, then there's really no point in taking them and I don't bother. However, when I do take them, and I'm now sort of a year into my little ADHD journey with Ritalin, I've found that the way it works is it enables you to concentrate on singular thoughts in your mind instead of multiple ones. But of course, it's not just the focusing on a task that Ritalin helps with. It's also beginning the task in the first place. And this was a huge one for me because endless times, I would be asked to do stuff and it just wouldn't get done because with the ADHD brain, the unstimulated ADHD brain with the very low dopamine levels, it's just impossible to summon up this magical willpower to do a task if it doesn't interest you. And those of us with ADHD know that when something does interest us, we have absolutely no problem in getting stuck into it. In fact, people talk a lot about this hyper-focused state where we're super interested in something and we kind of zone in on it, and there's this so-called ADHD superpower. And so there's this twofold positive effect from the Ritalin for me, which is firstly that I can begin a task if it doesn't interest me overly, and secondly it means I can persist at the task hopefully until it's done. Now the Ritalin doesn't make you suddenly enjoy jobs that aren't interesting, but that's never really been the problem for any of us with this issue. We understand that there are things that we have to do. We're self-aware. I know that I have to do some work that may not necessarily be the most interesting thing in the world because I've got a mortgage to pay and bills to pay and groceries to go and buy and all that kind of stuff. And so we have to do these things. We know that. That has never been the issue. We're self-aware. The issue has been this inability that we're incapable of just getting going and powering on through it. And so if I was asked, what it was like to take Ritalin, I'd say it was just the most normal thing in the world. What it does is make an ADHD brain much more like a sort of typical average human brain. It just lifts us up to the baseline level. So basically, for the duration of the time in which that medication is having its effect, we're exactly like everyone else, or pretty close to it. And so feeling constantly distracted by stuff and being unable to apply myself to stuff is just normal for me. That's the way I was for the vast majority of my life. I got diagnosed at the age of 53, which was about 18 months ago. And taking Ritalin is weird for me in the sense that I've never been able to tune out those distractions. And I've got an insight now that I take this medication into what everybody else has been able to enjoy all their lives. So when I take my pills, I don't hear the air conditioning unit quite so much. I don't hear the rain on the roof quite so much. I don't hear the car horn blaring in the street as much. I don't hear overheard conversation as much. Don't get rid of it all. It's not magical. You don't get into some sort of tunnel zone where only you and the thing you've got to do are sort of present. It doesn't do that. It tunes it out. It turns it down. Now, not long after I got my diagnosis, I went back to see my psychiatrist and had a sort of follow-up conversation about how I'd been since taking the Ritalin, and we talked about upping my dosage because I told him that it wasn't lasting long enough to have a sort of meaningful effect on my working day. And he laid a little trap for me during that conversation because he said to me, you've got to be careful that you don't take too much because it might affect your sleep patterns. And I said to him that actually I'd never slept better since I'd been taking these pills, and that I could take them before going to bed and sleep like a baby. And he said, well, there you go. That kind of proves the diagnosis, because somebody who does not have this chronically unstimulated, dopamine-deprived brain, if they take Ritalin, it would kind of take them up over the top. They would be overstimulated, they would be hyperactive, they would be bouncing off the walls, and they certainly wouldn't be getting much sleep. So if you've been thinking about getting yourself diagnosed and you're wondering what it was like to take Ritalin, that's my take on it. As I said, it's my personal view and the way it affects me. It affects everybody slightly differently, I guess, but the core of it is simply that it boosts dopamine levels in the brain. It's not an evil thing, and if you're a parent and you're looking at this video because you're thinking about getting this medication for your child, then I can only say to you that this is a non-addictive and largely benign drug that will only have beneficial effects on somebody with an ADHD brain. So that's it for this video, guys. I did actually start this once already and found myself heading off down this rabbit hole talking about stimulants in general, and I'm gonna do a video about all that kind of stuff. There's so much to discuss about this subject. Well, anyway, I'm banging on. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.